Mr. Raymond was a man who had everything people dream of. He was a millionaire, living in a huge mansion that stood proudly on the hill. The mansion had shining floors, tall glass windows, and golden chandeliers that sparkled at night. From the outside, his life looked perfect. People admired him. They said he was lucky, powerful, and blessed. But in truth, Raymond was not just lucky. He had worked very hard, and in his heart, he believed money was the answer to every problem. He trusted no one easily. He thought love could fade, people could lie, but money always gave power and control. There was only one person he truly cared for, his only son, David. David was young, kind, and innocent. For Raymond, his son was his pride. He wanted David to grow strong, to learn how the world works, and to never trust anyone too quickly. To Raymond, the world was dangerous, full of people who wanted to use others. David, however, was not like his father. He was gentle and soft-hearted. Where Raymond saw danger, David saw kindness. Where Raymond saw weakness, David saw love. Father and son were different, but Raymond believed he could shape his boy into the man he wanted him to become. Life inside the mansion moved like a perfect clock. The servants followed strict rules. Every morning breakfast was served at the exact same time. Every evening, Raymond returned home to find everything clean and quiet. He liked order, he liked control, and he liked when everything went exactly as he wanted. But one day, a small change entered his perfect life. A new maid joined the mansion. Her name was Anna. She was quiet, simple, and different from the other servants. She never raised her voice. She never argued. She worked silently, her eyes always lowered. She looked almost invisible in the big house, and yet, there was something about her presence that felt unusual. Raymond did not pay much attention to her at first. For him, servants were just workers, nothing more. But soon, he began to notice that his son behaved differently when Anna was around. David, who usually kept to himself, started spending more time in the kitchen where Anna worked. He laughed with her. He spoke to her like he had known her for years. Sometimes, when Raymond entered the room, David quickly became quiet, almost as if he was hiding something. Raymond's sharp eyes caught everything. He did not miss the way Anna looked at David with warmth, almost like a mother looks at her child. He noticed how David smiled in a way he never smiled with anyone else. A strange discomfort began to grow in Raymond's heart. One evening, Raymond returned home earlier than usual. The mansion was silent. As he walked past the garden, he heard soft voices. He stopped, his eyes narrowing. He followed the sound and saw something that made his chest tighten. There, under the old oak tree, his son was sitting with Anna. They were laughing softly, talking in secret. Anna leaned closer, speaking gently to David. And then, Raymond saw something that shook him. David held Anna's hand. For a moment, Raymond could not believe what he was seeing. His son, his only son, holding the hand of a maid? In his house? His heart filled with anger and confusion. Thoughts rushed through his mind. What was happening? Why was his son so close to this servant? What was Anna trying to do? Was she trying to trap David? Was she planning something? Raymond's face grew hard. He did not make a sound, but inside, a storm was rising. He turned and walked back into the mansion, his steps heavy, his mind racing. That night, he could not sleep. He kept remembering the image of his son's hand in Anna's. Every time he closed his eyes, the picture returned. He felt betrayed, insulted, even threatened. He had built a perfect life of order, but now, something was happening right inside his house, something he could not control. The next morning, Raymond sat at the dining table, his eyes cold. David came in, cheerful as always, but Raymond only stared at him. Anna entered quietly, serving breakfast with her usual calmness. But Raymond's eyes followed her every move. She did not look back at him. She only placed the dishes carefully and left. But Raymond noticed how David's eyes followed her until she disappeared into the kitchen. That was the moment Raymond made a silent promise to himself: he would find out the truth. Was Anna trying to use his son? Was his son hiding something from him? Or was it something else, something he could not yet understand? For the first time in years, Mr. Raymond felt fear, not fear of losing money, not fear of losing power, but fear of losing his son's heart to someone he could not control. And in that fear, a story of secrets, love, and shocking truth was about to begin. The next few days in the mansion were not the same. On the outside, everything looked normal, the lights still shone brightly in the hallways, the golden clock still ticked on the wall, and the servants still moved around quietly. But inside Mr. Raymond's heart, nothing felt normal anymore. He could not erase the picture from his mind, his son David holding Anna's hand under the oak tree. At breakfast, Raymond watched his son carefully. David laughed, spoke softly, and ate with joy. But his eyes, yes, his eyes, kept wandering to the kitchen door. Every time Anna walked past, David's face lit up. It was the kind of smile a father could never miss. Raymond gripped his coffee cup tighter. Why is he smiling like that? Why does he look for her? He felt a sting of anger, mixed with fear. Anna, however, continued her duties as if nothing had happened. She served food, cleaned the dishes, and arranged flowers in the living room. She never raised her voice. She never argued. She remained the same quiet, simple woman. But to Raymond, her silence felt heavy, almost like it was hiding something. One evening, Raymond returned home late. The house was mostly silent, the servants already in their quarters. As he walked through the hallway, he heard faint whispers coming from the study room. His steps slowed. He moved closer. It was David's voice. And another, soft, gentle, clearly Anna's. Raymond's jaw tightened. Slowly, he pushed the door open just a little. Inside, David was sitting on the couch, and Anna was standing beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. David looked upset, his head lowered. Anna was speaking in a comforting tone, like she was calming him. Raymond could not hear every word, but he caught small pieces. "Don't worry, you're not alone. I will always be here." The words stabbed his chest. To him, they sounded dangerous, even poisonous. Always be here? What does she mean? He pulled the door shut before they could notice him. His heart raced. He felt heat rising in his face. This is no longer a simple matter. She is trying to take my son away from me. That night, Raymond sat alone in his study. Papers lay open on the desk, but he could not read them. Business, money, contracts, none of it mattered. His thoughts kept circling back to Anna. He thought about the way she looked at David. The way David seemed happier around her than around him. For a man like Raymond, who had built walls of power and control, this was unbearable. He felt as if someone had entered his fortress and touched the one thing he valued most, his son. Days passed, and Raymond's suspicion grew stronger. He started watching Anna more closely. When she walked through the halls, his eyes followed. When she spoke to David, even about simple things, Raymond felt anger stir inside him. Sometimes, he even imagined things that were not there, like secret looks, hidden smiles, unspoken words. David, meanwhile, seemed to drift farther away from his father. At dinner, he talked less with Raymond and more with Anna. When Raymond tried to ask him about school or his hobbies, David gave short answers, then quickly turned to Anna with longer conversations. It hurt Raymond more than he could admit. But instead of showing pain, he showed anger. "David," he said one evening, his voice sharp, "you spend too much time with the maid. She is here to work, not to be your friend." David looked shocked. "But father, Anna is kind. She listens to me." "That is not her place," Raymond snapped. "Her place is to serve. Nothing more." Anna stood silently nearby, lowering her eyes, but Raymond noticed her hands trembling as she held the tray. She did not argue, she did not defend herself, but her silence somehow made him even angrier. After dinner, Raymond paced in his study. His anger turned into restless energy. He could no longer sit still. Something is wrong here. Something is very wrong. I must act before it is too late. That night, he made a decision. He would not just watch. He would test her. He would catch her. The next morning, he called for Anna. She entered the room, standing quietly with her hands folded. "Anna," Raymond said in a firm voice, "I want you to take care of a new duty. From today, you will not work in the kitchen. You will not serve at the table. You will not spend time in the garden. You will work only in the far side of the mansion, cleaning the storage rooms." Anna's eyes lifted slightly, and for the first time, Raymond saw something in them: hesitation, maybe even sadness. But she nodded softly. "Yes, sir." David, however, reacted differently. "Father, why? Why are you sending her away from us?" His young voice carried anger and desperation. Raymond's eyes turned cold. "Because it is necessary. You will not question me." David wanted to argue more, but Anna touched his arm gently. "It's okay, David," she whispered. "I will do what he says." Her calmness made Raymond even more suspicious. Why is she not resisting? What game is she playing? The next few days were strange. Anna stayed mostly in the far rooms, away from David. But Raymond noticed that his son grew quieter, almost sad. He walked around the mansion looking restless. His laughter was gone, his smile faded. One evening, Raymond caught David sneaking toward the storage rooms. "David!" His voice thundered. The boy froze. Raymond's heart pounded as he stared at his son. "Where are you going?" David lowered his head. "To see Anna." The words hit Raymond like a blade. He clenched his fists, his anger burning. His own son was disobeying him for a maid. Raymond took a long, deep breath. His mind was made up. If this continued, he would lose his son. He had to end it. He had to remove Anna from their lives, completely. But what he did not know was this: the truth he was about to discover would not only shock him, it would change everything he believed about his life, his past, and even his son. The storm inside Mr. Raymond's heart could no longer be contained. For days he had watched, listened, and doubted. Now, his suspicion had turned into something heavier: anger mixed with fear. He had built his life on control. Every deal, every servant, every corner of his mansion was under his command. But this, his son's bond with Anna, was something he could not control. And the thought of losing David's trust was unbearable. One cold evening, when the air outside carried the smell of rain, Raymond made his move. Anna was arranging books in the library, her soft hands carefully dusting the shelves. She looked calm, unaware of the storm about to break. David was sitting at the table, reading quietly. Raymond entered the room with heavy steps. The atmosphere shifted instantly. His presence was strong, like a shadow that covered the whole place. "David," he said in a hard voice. "Leave us. I need to speak with Anna." David looked up, surprised. "Father, why? What do you want?" "I said leave." Raymond's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. David hesitated, his eyes moving from his father to Anna. Anna gave him a small nod, as if telling him not to worry. Slowly, David stood and left the room, his footsteps fading down the hall. Now, it was only Raymond and Anna. She kept her eyes low, her hands folding in front of her. She looked fragile, but Raymond knew better. To him, she was dangerous not because of what she did, but because of how she touched his son's heart. Raymond stepped closer. "Tell me, Anna. What is going on between you and my son?" Anna's lips trembled. "Sir, nothing wrong. I only care for him." "Care?" Raymond's eyes burned with suspicion. "You are a servant in my house. Your duty is to clean, to serve, to remain silent. But you dare to place yourself close to my son? You dare to make him disobey me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I never meant disrespect. David is young, he is kind, he only needs someone to listen. I listen. Do not twist your words." Raymond thundered. "You are trying to trap him. I know people like you, quiet on the outside, but inside, filled with schemes. Do you think you can use his innocence to secure a place in this house? To rise above your position? Anna shook her head quickly, her tears falling. No, sir, never. I swear on my life, that is not my intention. But Raymond was not listening. His anger had already decided the truth in his mind. You will leave this house, he declared, his voice echoing against the tall shelves. Tonight. You will never see my son again. Anna's knees weakened. She pressed her hands together as if begging. Please, sir, do not do this. David, he needs me. He will be hurt. Enough. Raymond's hand slammed against the table, making the books tremble. He is my son. He belongs to me. He needs no one else. At that moment, the door burst open. David had returned, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. No, father, he cried, rushing forward. Don't send her away. Raymond turned sharply. You were told to leave. I heard everything, David said, his voice shaking but brave. Anna is not trying to hurt me. She is not using me. She cares for me in a way no one else does. Raymond's face grew darker. Do you hear yourself, David? You speak like a fool. She is a maid. She is nothing more than a servant. David's hands balled into fists. She is more than that to me. The words struck Raymond like a blade. His own son, standing against him, for her. His pride, his power, his control all felt as if they were crumbling. Raymond pointed to the door. Anna will leave this house, and that is final. Anna's tears flowed silently. She tried to speak, but David stepped in front of her, shielding her with his small body. If she goes, Father, I will never forgive you. For a moment, silence filled the room. The only sound was the soft ticking of the clock. Raymond's heart raced, torn between rage and fear. He wanted to shout, to command, to crush this rebellion. But when he looked at his son's face, so full of pain, so full of love for Anna, he felt something he did not want to admit, guilt. Yet pride was stronger. He could not bend, not now. Enough, David, he said coldly. You do not understand the world. One day you will thank me. For now, you will obey me. He turned to Anna. His voice was like stone. Pack your things. Leave before the night ends. Anna's body shook with silent sobs. She wanted to speak, to explain, but no words came. She only lowered her head and whispered, Yes, sir. David's cry filled the room. No. Please, don't do this. He clung to Anna's arm, but she gently touched his shoulder. It's all right, David, she whispered softly, her voice breaking. Be strong. Her words only made his tears flow harder. That night, the mansion felt emptier than ever. Anna packed her few belongings in a small bag. David tried to stop her, begging, pleading, but she only kissed his forehead gently and walked away. From the balcony, Raymond stood, watching as she disappeared into the dark road beyond the gates. His son stood by the door, crying, his shoulders trembling. For the first time in years, Raymond felt no victory in his decision. He felt only silence, heavy and cold, filling every corner of his perfect mansion. But deep inside, one question refused to leave his mind: why did David love her so much? Why did she cry as if leaving was breaking her heart? The answers were hidden in a past he had forgotten. And soon, that past would return to him like a storm. The mansion was never truly silent before. It was always alive with footsteps, the clinking of dishes, the rustling of servants moving around. But ever since Anna left, the silence felt different. It was not peaceful, it was heavy, almost painful. David stopped smiling. His laughter, once bright and warm, had vanished completely. He no longer played the piano in the evenings, no longer ran through the garden, no longer came to the dining table with cheerful stories. He sat quietly in his room, his eyes dull, his lips sealed. Mr. Raymond noticed it all. At first, he told himself it was temporary, that his son was just upset and would soon forget. But days turned into weeks, and David only grew quieter. At dinner, he picked at his food, barely eating. When Raymond tried to start a conversation, David gave short replies or no reply at all. The boy who once brought light to the mansion now moved like a shadow inside it. The servants whispered about it in the corners. They said the young master's heart had broken. They said Anna's absence had stolen his spirit. Raymond heard those whispers, and though he tried to ignore them, they pierced his pride. Is my son truly suffering because of a maid? He asked himself again and again. But the truth was there before his eyes. His son was fading. One night, unable to sleep, Raymond walked past David's room. A dim light glowed under the door. Quietly, he pushed it open. David was sitting on the floor, his back against the bed, holding something in his hands. His small shoulders shook as he wiped his tears. Raymond stepped inside. "David," he said softly. David looked up quickly, hiding the object behind him. His red eyes widened with fear. "Father, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same," Raymond replied. He tried to sound calm, but suspicion filled his voice. "What are you hiding?" "And nothing," David stammered. He tried to stand, but Raymond's sharp eyes caught the corner of a photograph slipping from his hand. In 2 strides, Raymond was there. He reached out and snatched the photo before David could stop him. "Father, please, don't!" David cried, but it was too late. Raymond looked at the photograph. And for the first time in years, his heart stopped. The photo was old, edges worn, colors faded. But the image was clear. It was Anna. Younger, her face glowing with youth. And in her arms, a baby, his son, David. Raymond's eyes widened. His hands trembled. "What is this? Why is she holding my son?" He looked at David, his voice rough with confusion. "Where did you get this?" David's tears fell harder. I found it in the storage room. I kept it because she was there with me." Raymond's chest tightened. "What do you mean? Explain." "She told me nothing," David whispered, shaking his head. "But when I saw the picture, I knew she was part of my life before. She cared for me even when I was small. That's why I feel close to her, Father. That's why I love her." Raymond staggered back, gripping the photo. His mind spun with questions. How is this possible? Why was she with David when he was a baby? Why was this photo hidden in my own house? He remembered his wife, the gentle woman he had lost years ago. After her death, he had buried himself in work, building his empire, leaving the child mostly in the care of others. He remembered long days in offices, late nights in meetings, endless travels. He remembered being absent. And in those memories, he realized there were gaps. Days, months, even years where he barely noticed who cared for his son. Could it have been her? Could Anna have been there all along, silently raising the child he was too busy to hold? The thought pierced his heart like a blade. "Why didn't she tell me?" he muttered, staring at the photo. "Why did she hide this from me?" David's voice cracked. "Because you never listen, Father. You never ask. You only command. Maybe she was afraid you would not believe her." The boy's words struck deeper than any insult. Raymond lowered himself into a chair, holding the photo tightly, his mind swirling with guilt, anger, and fear. All his life, he believed money solved everything. He built walls of gold around his son, thinking it was protection. But now he saw the truth, it was not money that had raised his boy in those tender years. It was love. A love he had ignored. And that love came from Anna. Raymond looked at his son. "David, do you know where she went?" David shook his head slowly. "No. She left without telling me. But I know she didn't want to go." "You forced her." Raymond's throat tightened. For the first time, he could not defend himself. He had no words. The silence stretched heavy in the room. Father and son sat there, broken in different ways. At last, Raymond stood. He placed the photo carefully on the desk. His voice was softer than David had ever heard. "I will find her." David looked up, hope flickering in his teary eyes. You will bring her back?" Raymond nodded slowly. "Yes. But not as a servant. I need answers. I need the truth. And if what I fear is correct, then I owe her more than I can ever repay." That night, Raymond could not sleep. The photograph lay on his desk, its image burning into his mind. He stared at it again and again, the young Anna, holding baby David with a mother's love. For the first time in his life, Mr. Raymond felt powerless. Not against money, not against business rivals, but against the truth. And he knew this truth could either destroy him or save him. The photo refused to leave Mr. Raymond's mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Anna's younger face, her gentle arms holding baby David. The image was not just shocking, it was haunting. For the first time, the great millionaire felt like a man who had missed something precious in his own life. He had built his empire with determination, but somewhere along the way, he had forgotten to look back at the small details that truly mattered. And now, those forgotten details had returned to him through a single photograph. Raymond knew he could not rest until he found Anna. He needed answers. He needed the truth. The very next morning, he called his driver and ordered him to prepare the car. With the photograph in his pocket, he began his search. At first, he went to the nearby towns, asking quietly if anyone knew a woman named Anna. Most people shook their heads, some gave vague answers, but then one old shopkeeper recognized the name. "Yes," the man said, adjusting his glasses. "A quiet woman, lives in the small village by the river. Keeps to herself, doesn't talk much. She works sometimes in the fields. A kind soul, but always looks lonely." Raymond's chest tightened. Lonely. The word echoed in his heart. He thanked the shopkeeper and continued his journey. The village was far different from the grand city Raymond was used to. There were no tall buildings, no shining cars, no golden chandeliers. Instead, there were small houses with wooden doors, narrow streets, and children running barefoot. It was a world so simple that it almost felt unreal to a man who had spent his life chasing wealth. Finally, he reached a small house by the river. Its walls were old, the roof patched with care, but there was a certain warmth to it. And there, outside, he saw her. Anna. She was hanging clothes on a line, her hands moving slowly, her face pale but calm. When she looked up and saw him, the color drained from her cheeks. The basket in her hands slipped and fell. "Sir," she whispered, her voice shaking. Raymond stood still, his heart pounding. For a moment, neither spoke. The river flowed gently behind them, the breeze carrying the smell of earth and water. Finally, Raymond broke the silence. "Why, Anna? Why did I find this photo of you holding my son?" Her eyes filled with tears instantly. She looked away, her lips trembling. "I hoped you would never find it." Raymond stepped closer, his voice firm. "I must know the truth. Did you raise my son when he was small?" Anna's tears fell silently down her cheeks. She nodded. Raymond's chest tightened painfully. "Why? Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Because you would not have listened. Back then, you were lost in your world of business. After your wife passed away, you drowned yourself in work. You left David in the care of servants, but they did not care. They only followed orders. They only did what you paid them to do." She paused, wiping her eyes with the corner of her scarf. "I could not watch him suffer. He was just a baby, crying, alone, without his mother's love. So I held him. I fed him. I sang him to sleep. I became what he needed. Not because it was my duty, but because my heart would not allow me to turn away." Raymond's throat closed. The image of his baby son crying alone pierced him. He remembered the endless meetings, the nights he never came home, the days he never asked who was truly caring for his child. Anna continued, her voice breaking. "When you finally noticed David growing healthy and happy, You thought it was your wealth that protected him. You never asked who gave him love. You never asked who wiped his tears. I never told you, because I knew money was all you trusted. And what I gave him, money could never buy. Her words cut through him like knives. For the first time in his life, the great Raymond felt small. His pride, his wealth, his empire, all of it seemed useless in front of this simple truth. He looked at her with heavy eyes. Why did you return to my house as a maid, Anna? Why come back after all these years? Anna lowered her head. Because I missed him. I missed the boy I once held like my own. I told myself I would serve quietly, never reveal the truth, never stand in your way. I only wanted to see him grow, to know he was safe. But I failed to hide my heart. David felt my love, and he came closer. That is why you grew suspicious. Raymond swallowed hard. His hands shook as he pulled the photograph from his pocket. He held it out to her. This photo proves everything. Why did you keep it hidden? Anna took the picture with trembling hands, pressing it to her chest. Because it was my only memory of those years. My proof that, for a time, I was more than just a servant. I was a mother to him, in all the ways I could be. Her sobs grew stronger. She covered her face, breaking down. Raymond's heart ached. He wanted to speak, but no words came. For the first time in many years, his eyes burned with tears. He had spent so long guarding his pride that he never realized how much he had lost. Finally, his voice broke. Anna, forgive me. Forgive me for sending you away, for doubting you, for everything. I thought I was protecting my son, but I was only protecting my pride. Anna looked at him, her tearful eyes filled with pain. It is not me who needs forgiveness, sir. It is David. His heart is broken. He thinks love can be taken away, like a servant dismissed. Go to him. Show him that a father can love without pride. That is the forgiveness he needs. Raymond's tears finally fell. He covered his face with his hand, his body trembling with emotions he had never allowed himself to feel. In that moment, he understood the truth fully. His empire meant nothing compared to the love his son had found in Anna. And it was love, not money, that had raised David into the kind boy he was. Raymond lowered his hand, his voice trembling. I will bring you back, Anna. Not as a servant. As family. David needs you. And, perhaps, I need you too. Anna's lips trembled, and more tears rolled down her face. She did not answer with words. She only looked at him, her silence filled with years of pain and sacrifice. And Raymond knew the hardest part was yet to come. He had to return home. He had to face his son. He had to make things right. The journey back to the mansion felt longer than ever. Mr. Raymond sat silently in the car, his hands gripping the old photograph as if it were a lifeline. His mind replayed Anna's words again and again. It is not me who needs forgiveness. It is David. For years, Raymond believed power and money could shield his son. But in truth, it had been love unseen, unspoken, that had protected David when he was most vulnerable. Now, his son was broken, and only the truth could mend his heart. When Raymond entered the mansion, the house seemed colder, emptier than before. The grand chandeliers sparkled, but there was no warmth in their glow. The servants bowed as he passed, but he ignored them. His eyes searched for one person, his son. He found David in his room, sitting by the window, staring at the dark sky. His face was pale, his eyes red, as if he had been crying for days. David, Raymond said softly. David turned slowly. His gaze was empty, his voice flat. Why are you here? To tell me again that she is gone? That I should forget her? Raymond's chest tightened. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. No, my son. I came to say. I was wrong. David blinked, surprised. His father had never spoken those words before. Raymond sank into the chair across from him. He placed the photograph gently on the table between them. I found her, David. I found Anna. And I found the truth. David's eyes widened. He reached for the photo, his hands shaking. You saw her? Yes, Raymond whispered. His throat ached, but he forced the words out. She was with you when you were a baby. When I was blind with grief and drowned in work, it was Anna who held you, fed you, comforted you. It was Anna who gave you the love I should have given. I was too proud, too blind to see it. David's lips trembled, his tears falling. I knew it. I felt it. That's why I couldn't let her go. She's like my mother. Raymond's own tears fell then, breaking through years of pride. He reached across the table, his hand trembling as he touched his son's arm. Forgive me, David. Forgive me for doubting her. Forgive me for hurting you. For a long moment, David only stared at him, his tears flowing. Then, slowly, he nodded. I forgive you, Father. But, will she come back? Raymond's voice cracked. Yes. I asked her. I begged her. And she will return not as a maid, not as a servant, but as family. The next evening, the gates of the mansion opened. A carriage stopped, and Anna stepped out, holding a small bag. She looked nervous, her eyes uncertain, as if she feared she was walking into a dream that could vanish at any moment. David saw her first. He ran across the hall, his feet pounding on the marble floor, and threw himself into her arms. Anna, he cried, his voice breaking with joy. Anna's tears fell as she hugged him tightly, her hands trembling as they held the boy she had once cradled as a baby. Oh, my child, my sweet child, she whispered, kissing his hair. I never wanted to leave you. Raymond stood at the top of the stairs, watching them. His chest ached, but this time it was not with pride or anger. It was with something new, humility. Slowly, he descended the stairs. Anna looked up, her arms still around David, her face uncertain. Raymond stopped before her. His voice was low, but steady. Anna, I owe you more than words can ever repay. You gave my son what I could not. For that, I thank you. And for doubting you, for sending you away, I beg your forgiveness. Anna shook her head quickly, her tears flowing. You do not need to beg, sir. I only did what any heart would do for a child. But I forgive you. David looked between them, his young eyes shining with hope. So, does this mean we can be a family? The question struck both adults deeply. Raymond felt his throat close, but he forced a smile through his tears. Yes, David. From now on, we are a family. Anna covered her mouth, her sobs escaping, but this time they were not of sorrow. They were of relief. Raymond reached out, placing his hand gently on Anna's shoulder. For the first time, his touch was not of command but of respect. Together, they walked into the dining hall. The mansion, once cold and silent, now felt alive again. That night, dinner was simple bread, soup, fruit, but it was the most meaningful meal Raymond had ever shared. He watched as David laughed again, his smile returning. He watched as Anna poured soup, her eyes glowing not as a servant, but as a mother. And for the first time in years, Raymond laughed too. Later, as he stood on the balcony, looking at the stars, Raymond reflected on his journey. He had chased wealth his entire life, thinking it was the answer to every pain. But tonight, he realized the truth. Money could build a mansion, but it could not build a home. Money could fill a table with gold, but it could not fill a heart with love. Money could command respect, but it could not command forgiveness. It was love, quiet, patient, selfless, that had saved his son. And it was love that had saved him too. Raymond closed his eyes, whispering softly into the night. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for giving my son a mother's love. And thank you for teaching me that no empire is greater than family. The stars seemed to shine brighter, as if blessing the new beginning of a man who had finally learned the greatest truth of all.